the ability of their people to create new value, new innovations. And, and I think, you said the millennials want to work for those organisations that have that purpose. And so I sort of have hope that as a human world, that's where our successful companies will end up.
The battle for talent, culture.
Yeah.
I want to riff on
rather than your automated to just reduce your bottom line costs.
On the point you raised around trust, because I think that is probably the most important issue that we can talk about right now, right? And the reason why it's important is AI right now, a young child, is baby AI. We are in the early stages of the development. And I've got two young kids. I've got a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old, so it's chaos in my household at the moment. But you realize that as any parent looking out in the room, I see there might be many parents, just jump in. It's the values that determine the outcome. But this child is not any ordinary child. This child has superpowers, right? AI. And the analogy I tell people is think about if Clark Kent, when he crashed onto the earth, crashed into the backyard instead of the Clark family. Same baby, same superpowers, very dramatic different outcome. Super villain versus superhero. And everyone sitting in the room here today is going to be in one of two fundamental camps. Either you're in the business of making AI capabilities, or you're in the business, the majority of us, of consuming AI capabilities. And the decision we have to make collectively is what are the values we're going to place on the use and consumption of these technologies in terms of accountability, explainability, ethics, bias in the data. All of these algorithms train on lots and lots of data. So the data we choose to feed it is going to amplify any intrinsic bias that we have in the data. So these are very important questions that we cannot sit on the sidelines and delegate to other people. We cannot go into a world where we've got black box algorithms determining who gets a job, who gets parole, who gets promoted, which way the car goes in the case of an accident. So these are very important questions that have to be debated at every level.
That's a great segue to my last question, but everyone probably got a minute or two to think about some questions. You want to ask our panelists, so this is your warning. I'm hoping there are quite a few. Gavin, to sort of end things from my end, how do you think we should, to that point, go about ensuring that AI automation benefits society and there aren't the unintended consequences like baking in societal lives?
You can never avoid unintended consequences. If you could, they would be intended. So I think it comes back to, based on moral and ethics. There is no question that AI and automation can be used for tremendous good, and it can also be used for tremendous evil in the wrong hands. And it's the yin and the yang. It's the two sides of one coin. What you have available to you that improves outcomes, when used by terrorists, when used by regimes, when used by people with evil intent, can have incredibly harmful effects. So it will come back to social consequences, it will come back to ethics, it will come back to questions of morals, and hopefully the human race, as it has proven throughout history, will be able to chart its way through that dilemma in the application of these new technologies.
Got some roving mics for the question here.
Larry warned me earlier, he was going to ask you something.
Oh.
Thanks, Gavin. Larry Quick, Presenting Futures. It strikes me that the horse may have already bolted. I happen to work in Stanford, Connecticut on projects, and we say Stanford, Connecticut trading, bringing in the GFC, because that's where most of the trading floors are. They're not on Wall Street, they're in Stanford, Connecticut, and that's where most of the shops that created the algorithms that create the GFC are. So if you like, AI is already continues in the financial sector, our baseline financial sector. Anyone here who thinks that the financial sector is inconsequential just look at your bank balance or look at your home loan or look at your car, or whatever it is, which will continue into the future. And if you think about disruption, you'd say that fintech is heavily disrupting banking and financial services. So you've got the GFC for a starter, which AI created in many, many ways, early stage baby AI, that drove algorithms in the financial services sector that no one even knows how they work, by young guys doing things in backyards and all sorts of stuff. The hedge funds pick them up, and we have all sorts of stuff. So my question is that we've had the GFC, we've had the Banking Royal Commission, we've just got a whole bunch of government people trying to make changes, which is politically driven, sporadic. But from a financial services, our baseline, how are we going to correct that problem? You start.
I promise if it was a difficult question, I'll let one of the other panelists.
I'm happy to take a stab at that, and thank you for the question. It's a really provocative one. I think, just to go back to your comment, I would challenge the fact that AI created the GFC. I would say the application of AI created the GFC. Back to the analogy of the superhero, supervillain. You can take a hammer, you can nail something into the floor, and you can take a hammer, you can hit someone. It's the same hammer, but it's the intent of the application of it. So I think going forward, what the Royal Commission has shown us is that we need to double down on governance. We need to double down on transparency. We need to double down on baking in the appropriate values in every level of the organization, whether that's the board level or the person on the street. So if you go back to the GFC example, if there was stronger checks and balances in the trading practices of those individuals, we might have been able to have early warning systems to tell us that we're trending in a really disastrous direction, AI aside. So I think I'm expecting that you'll see collectively more emphasis on governance throughout the organization within the use of these technologies as driving outcomes.
It's an ethics question at the end of the day. I mean, the discussion around the Royal Commission and the implications is, yes, you can have more governance. I agree, it's not about the technology, it's about the use of the technology, but it's about incentives and behaviours and ethics. And at the end of the day, if you keep the same people in those roles with the same incentive, you're going to end up with the same outcome regardless of what the tech is, right? So the issue is, how do those companies change their culture? How do they incentivise people differently to have different behaviours at the end of the day? And I think it is a cultural issue, not a technology issue with banks. Black box, white box, algorithms aside, it's how we use them. And I think the biggest challenge we have is how are we going to change these banks? 30,000, 40,000 people, are there going to be wholesale staff changes? Are there going to be massive changes in the way that they incentivise and KPI their people? I'm not seeing that. We're still waiting for the implications, but it's about the people, not the technology.
What about the stock market? Because that's underlying the whole thing. They're complying with the stock market to actually produce the results that a bank wants.
But, I mean, to Robert's point, that you can have, people turn a blind eye. Black box algorithms, we don't know quite how it gets there, but we know we get an outcome that we like. We can tell over many years or months of historical tracking that it's going to give us an outcome which gives us a certain, profit. That's all decision making based on people. People can start and stop that. So I think it's the blunt instrument argument with the algorithms and the technology. It's about people and their ethics and the outcomes that they're seeking and how they are being motivated to perform. That's really where the key of this argument lies.
Do you think a powerful force could be, as consumers and customers of the needs, when something happens from an algorithm, we're asking how did you get to there? We're really asking companies to explain and be transparent.
I think we've got another question.
Hello, I'm an author and I'm the editor of Get Published magazine. AI is going to take my job away. How can I compete?
So how do you
I mean, I would argue, so I'm assuming if you're a writer, you have an opinion. So no one can take your opinion away. It might make it easier for you to share your opinion with more people. It might make it easier for you to find people with a common mindset. But I don't believe that it will take your job away. I think that you have the opportunity to amplify your opinion and share it with a greater number of people through the power of technology.
I would also say that we are a long way off from a time when AI are writing really creative, compelling pieces, let alone novels. Right? Language is probably the most challenging part of human intelligence that the field is going after right now. If you think about language, there's so many things going on there. There's natural language processing, there's sentiment analysis, there is question answering. Each of those tasks that we do naturally, an algorithm struggles on one of those tasks. So to Ross's point, if you amplify your creativity, if you drive a following, if you create an environment where you've got an authentic voice, that's how I think you compete for the foreseeable future.
I think that's all we have time for, unfortunately. So big thank you to all of our panelists for
Yolanda, Rob, Buzz, Gavin, Joe, and Robert. What a fantastic discussion. So much for your time this morning. Very diverse, very provocative. At RMIT Online, we completely agree with you, Robert, that educational institutions have not done enough to fill these skills gaps we see in the future of work. We are leaning in. We heard there was 37,000 Salesforce admins required in Australia in the next 5 years. We've done a course in it. We heard there was a shortage of blockchain architects and solution makers. We've done a course in it. If you are interested in talking to us about the course we are doing both in industry-led short courses and in accredited programs, there will be some people at the table. That's the end of my pitch. But leaves only to thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your ideas and a very insightful discussion. Thank you so much.
Well,